fight, 110-story office building that's been hit with jet fuel. So are you making it up as you go along? Yeah, you are. But who else thought that? In other words, even on the firefighting end of it, I only remember, and again, this is all second and third hand, that one chief coming in said, should we be thinking about a collapse here? Maybe we should already be out of here. But that was decided that wasn't, going to happen, and that we were going to treat it as if, we did get some resources into the upper floors. We got a battalion chief up into the 78th floor, and he was able to communicate conditions there. But again, no elevators, standpipes gone, the spring, everything that was designed to allow a building to build to that height is gone. In other words, you don't build a building that high and expect people to use the stairways. Well, now you do. You don't build a building that high and not have it sprinkled. Well, now the sprinkler's not working. You're going to have to make up where you get your water from. The standpipe system is not operating. So it's not easy, but it's not impossible. It's in the military, you run out of ammunition, you fix bayonets. You do what you got to do next. And that's what we did. Whatever we were thrown, we adapted and tried to still, get it done.
It sounds like, in the end, even though the problem was of a different nature and scope, you went back to basics to deal with whatever the immediate area was that you could deal with, given all the things you just said, what resources you have,
right,
the nature of the ground, etc. And you've got some principles that you're applying, understanding at the same time that
it might not work, or it's going to take longer.
And we haven't been here before.
It's going to take longer. I don't know that anybody envisions a situation where a chief might say, we have a 50-story office building and we're giving it up. We're not going to really be able to address it. We already are over what we can handle. We're not going to be able to bring the resources to bear. And we're going to let a 50-story office building collapse after 210-story buildings have already collapsed. I don't know I don't know anybody war game that scenario. Now since 9/11, we've probably war gamed every possible scenario, but you never know. When I got involved a little bit later on in operations and stuff, I used to say, you can't plan, for the next Pearl Harbor. What you can do is increase your flexibility, increase your capability. You can, add your resources. A lot of it's money if you're in a situation where that's possible. But that's down the road and that's over time. But that's more getting into the recovery aspect for the whole department. But for that day, and I guess executives would call it crisis management, but what's the criteria for that? You do what you can with what you've got. A lot of people, when they're doing cutbacks, they'll say, well, we're going to do more with less. You know what you do more? You know what you do with less? You do less. You don't do more. So, it's what we could do,
Well, it also struck me that in your description today, and then when I go to the recovery piece, that you also had a change mission. So you went in to fight a fire,
right,
rescue people, you ended up in an entirely different mission.
Yeah.
For any number of reasons, it's an entirely different mission.
Yeah. So
as a leader, you have to handle that as well.
Yeah. It's. I had a good friend of mine, and he was on a job, and somebody's got to do it. This is what we've been tasked with. I might not want to do this. This isn't what I was maybe trained for, but this is what I have today. So, what you have to remember, we also staffed every firehouse in the city that day. as much as we could. So regular fire operations still occurred. We didn't stop doing what we were doing. We had a procedure in place for what we call total recall. In other words, so everybody who's on duty stays and everybody who's off duty comes in. They implemented that sometime early in the morning, probably by 9:30, when they realized this was going to be bigger. So you just go back to, again, what do we have? What do we do if there's a blizzard? Okay, like a lot of that stuff is in the bank. None of this stuff was in the bank, but you still go back to those procedures and principles, or whatever. This is what you do. This is what we can do. I don't know, how many guys are good at winging a situation like that. If you're doing that, that's hard to do.
In other words, without some basics.
Yeah, you have to have the basics in place. There are probably still basic management principles. You have to be responsible for your help. If your staff is injured, you have to deal with that. In other words, so we had to deal with losing half the people that were on the scene and having the other half pretty well banged up. Now, who's going to take care of it? Who's next? And that's basically what it turned into. Next. And they showed up, ready to go to work, and they did. Now, we're the largest fire department in the world. It makes it easier for us. We have 1,800 people on duty every moment of the day. There are plenty of fire departments who don't have 800 people in their whole department. So if they were given something like this, they'd be overwhelmed. But even that, okay, I'm overwhelmed. Bring in the National Guard. Make the choices that you should be making that based on if you've done it. And again, a lot of places now, this is all post 9/11. It's easy to say, but any large organization even has a whole different game plan on where they site their office buildings, who goes into those buildings. There's any office building around here. There's a book in the lobby on what to do if this happens, that happens. To a degree. Again, you can't cover every base, but that didn't exist before 9/11. And that's what you would do. You just rely on what you know, but I don't think there's a lot of independent thinking going on in these things. In other words, if you look back at it, I'm sure there are people who are going to say, well, that wasn't the way to handle that. Well, it would have been better if you didn't make the commitment maybe of men we did, have so many people standing by. Where should they have been? That kind of stuff could be questioned. But given the situation that we had and the history we had before that, that was a normal way to operate, I think.
So it's going to move into the period after September 11th. That covers, as you well know, not just days, but months and arguably even years after that. So why don't you, if you would, pick out what you think is notable over that period of time, whether it's days or whether it's months in or whether it's even longer in, just as you were just referencing some of the adjustments over time. But anything that you think is noteworthy as you walk through the days, the months, the even years following September 11th, that you said this is a September 11th event, even though it's not on the day.
Yeah. Not really sure. In the months that followed, generally speaking, if you have a collapse in a regular building, even if you were dealing with an earthquake, you might look for victims. A victim could survive maybe 14, 18 days, and then you'd have to come to the conclusion that this is now a recovery. Okay? In this situation, we knew pretty much within 2 or 3 days that this was going to take a long time. And then how are we going to address it? How are we going to approach it? And what kind of commitment are we going to make? a lot of that was new. That's really, we're talking about thinking out of the box or whatever. You do have to come up with, how are we going to make